We're continuing Kuf Tesvav Halach Beis. Last time we spoke about the beginning of what it takes to make Gevinas Yisroel. And we spoke about the Machlokes, the Rema, and the Shach, what it takes to make Gevinas Yisroel. And to say in short, the parts I'm going to get to today.
Can I just...
Sure.
Is a hashkacha type of question. Number one, is there a policy? And number two, is there any achrayus to let people know before they ask exactly what your shittas are when you're working?
Yes, there is a policy. But yes, we should let people know. And what the policy is for next time. I thought it was going to be this time, but it's going to be next time. What the policy is. But yes, we should let people know.
I mean, it should be a sign.
No, I don't know if it's a sign, but it should be public. No, you'll hear next time why this is more of a relevant event. Okay, so the Rema says that the takana of Gevinas Yisroel is very similar to the one of Chol Yisroel. Just like both of them were concerned that the guy would eat something that's not kosher. Okay, and both of them are obviated by having a yid oversee it and make sure that he didn't eat the thing that was not kosher, and that's what makes kosher. That's what the Rambam learns. The Shach says, no, that's not true. Gevinas Yisroel has a low plug to it, which doesn't allow you to just look at something and say, I looked at it and I made sure it was okay. But rather, there's two ways. The Shach said there were two ways to make Gevinas Yisroel. Either the yid owned it, that Gevinas Yisroel, that's what it means when the Mishnah says it's mine, it's the yid's Gevina, or the yid could participate in the making of that. And why should it help if the yid participates? Because he holds that Gevinas Yisroel is similar to Pas Yisroel. Just like Pas Yisroel, you make it Pas or Bishul Yisroel by the yid participating, so to Gevina you do that by the yid participating. That was the Machlokes. Today we're going to go into more detail on what the Rama held. Again, the Rama is the one who said you have to watch it. And we're going to talk about three situations where the watching is not so straightforward, and we're going to talk about whether that watching does or does not count. Okay, watching, in a simple case, you just watch it in your business. Then we're going to talk about three cases that are a little bit more complicated, where there's a question about the watching. Okay. And the first one is whether, if the yid is Yotzeh V'nichnas, that should be good enough. Okay, so there are Achronim who talk about it, whether Yotzeh V'nichnas should work for Gevinas Yisroel. And when they asked Erdowski this question, they asked him whether Yotzeh V'nichnas should work. His assumption was that it should not work. Why would they think it should not work? He says, well, Yotzeh V'nichnas just makes him mirsus. Yotzeh V'nichnas means that he's afraid to do something wrong because I might catch him. He says, well, we know the Chacham says, we heard it from many people, we spoke about this when we went to Halacha Aleph, that Gevinas Yisroel has a higher standard than Chol Yisroel. By Chol Yisroel, you have to just know that the person only used kosher milk. By Gevinas Yisroel, the Chacham specifically wanted you to do that through looking. Well, mirsus is not looking. Mirsus is mirsus. Mirsus is not looking. So for Chol Yisroel, that might give you the idea that you need, but it doesn't help for Gevinas Yisroel where there's a higher standard, and the requirement is specifically to get that knowledge through watching. He says, you're not watching, you're only doing Yotzeh V'nichnas, just as mirsus. That's what Rabbi Belsky said. Okay. Rabbi Shachter did not agree to that. Okay. He didn't explain fully. We're going to explain, really, with what we explained when we went to Halacha Aleph, we'll understand Rabbi Shachter is a lot better than what Rabbi Belsky said. And that is, we had said then, we've mentioned it a number of times, there's a Tosfos, an important Tosfos on Lam Testament base. The Mishnah says that the way you make Chol Yisroel is by a yid watching to make sure he didn't put any treif milk. That's what the Mishnah says. The Gemara starts off, Tanina lahad Torah Rabbanan. Okay, we have a brisa that says exactly the same thing. And what does the brisa say? The brisa says that Yotzeh V'nichnas works. So Tosfos says, what are you talking about? What do you mean, Tanina lahad Torah Rabbanan? The Mishnah and the brisa, they don't say the same thing. The Mishnah says you have to watch, and the brisa says that Yotzeh V'nichnas is good enough. So Tosfos says, what's everyone talking about? How is the Mishnah and the brisa saying the same thing? They could be true, but it's not the same. The Mishnah and brisa are not the same thing. So Tosfos says, you could read this different ways. So the way we understand how Tosfos says is like this. And the Gemara is understanding that when the Mishnah said you have to see, it didn't mean you have to actually eyeball the milk being taken out of the cow. It means is you have to see certain things that give you a beer that the milk is coming from a cow. Sometimes you see that by actually watching it. Sometimes you see that by standing outside the milking and watching what's going on. Sometimes you see that even by being Yotzeh V'nichnas. There are things that you see that will give you, when the Mishnah said you have to see, it didn't mean you have to physically see. It meant is you have to through seeing you have to see a certain amount. Seeing doesn't have to mean that the milk coming out of the cow. There are other things that you could see that would give you that beer also. So the Gemara is telling us, we're talking about milk now. We're talking about milk. When the Mishnah said you have to see the milking, it didn't mean you actually see the milk coming out of the cow. There are things that things that you could see that would give you that beer. Okay, so now, if that's true, the reason why Yotzeh V'nichnas works for milk is not because you can get away with that kind of a idea without having a re'iyah. It works because that's the re'iyah Chazal had in mind. They wanted you to see certain things. So, for example, if you sit on the outside of the farm and you see that nothing's coming in, you're seeing what Chazal wanted you to see. You didn't see the milking, but you saw enough. And so in each situation you have to see certain things, and you saw the right amount. So good. So that's what it means by cholav. That's what it means by cholav. And that same thing, the Rema said, Gvina and Chol have the same dinim. Whatever you need to see for Cholav is what you need to see for Gvina. So if that works for seeing for Cholav, then it's going to work for seeing for Gvina also. It's not that the Gemara is saying that Mirsus works in addition to seeing. No, that Yotzeh V'nichnas is a kind of seeing that is what the Mishnah meant when the Mishnah said you have to see. So Gvina has the same rules. Like Gvina, you also have to see it's a lot told you must see. You can't use other birurim. So what do you have to see? You have to see if Yotzeh V'nichnas, the Gemara said that Yotzeh V'nichnas is considered seeing, so that's also considered seeing. In other words, you couldn't use the ideas. There are other forms of idea. Like for example, we spoke about the famous one, the government oversight that provides the idea of b'loi re'iyah that you can't use. You can't use that. You have to do something through seeing. But the seeing could take many forms. And the Gemara explained that what we call Yotzeh V'nichnas qualifies as seeing. And it's Chol Yisrael, but the point for us is that it would be Gevinas Yisroel.
Because here you absolutely require re'iyah.
Here you have to have re'iyah in order. But
it's mahalach. You absolutely need re'iyah.
That's the Chacham Zal. That's when we go down Mahalach. You have to have re'iyah. Gevina is more strict than Chol. But we're saying is that the definition of re'iyah is broader than just actually watching the act. There's other things.
What was the Chacham Zal talking when the Chacham Zal required re'iyah? What was he talking about?
He
didn't have this emotion about Yediyah.
Oh, he did. No. He said if you would know 100% that it was Cholav from a kosher animal. If you were 100% sure, but you didn't see anything, that would work for Cholav, but not for Gevina. That's what he says. He doesn't speak it, how do you know for sure? But the point is, we have an example of that. We have Ramos's case. We have the government oversight provides it. I saw nothing, but I have another bureau that works, and that's good enough. Did you want to say something, so?
No, I think that there are outliers who will make human living without any re'iyah, but that was...
Like Gevina?
The Rav had this,
Right, so... But we spoke about that. No, we did it already. You missed it. That was what we spoke about. That's in Rabbeinu Tam, that maybe you shouldn't need the kind of Chol Yisrael.
Because you know that Rabbeinu Tam always is equal.
Right, so we did that already. But we're past that.
Okay,
we're working with the assumption of our mother that you need to have...
I wasn't here for that.
Right, okay, that's fine. So we're working with that assumption that you need that. So now that you need to have the re'iyah, so you have to specifically re'iyah. But this is a re'iyah. So the Yotzeh V'nichnas, that's also re'iyah. The words are basically, he wrote this part. He says, "Ha're'iyah hadrusha shoyno legami me're'iyas chaliv aliyas Chol Yisroel." He says the re'iyah for Gevinas Yisroel is not, and Chol is not true. That's not what the Rama said. The Rama didn't say that it's different. It's exactly the same, but just that the difference between Gevina and Chol is that Gevina specifically needs re'iyah, and Chol can get away with other birurim that are of a similar level. Okay, so that's the first one. That's seeing through Yotzeh V'nichnas. Okay, now we'll move to a second one. By as I said, you need to have the same level of re'iyah for Gevina and for Cholav. But the difference was that for Cholav, you can use other birurim, what Rema calls a yediyah b'loi re'iyah, it's a lashon ha'gemara, a yediyah b'loi re'iyah that would work for Cholav, that doesn't work for Gevina. Rema doesn't say it doesn't work for Gevina, but that's other achronim say that it doesn't work for Gevina.
Seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing. Okay, you need that kind of a birur. Okay, so we say Yotzeh V'nichnas is considered a seeing also. But we spoke about when we talked about Chol Yisrael, we spoke about what happens if the Yid's going to watch the Chaliva through video camera. Okay, he's going to watch it through a video camera. Is that going to work for Chol Yisrael or not? At the time, we spoke at the contemporary questions speak about that, and there were those who said that it does not work. Rabbi Weissman said that it does not work. And he says the reason why it doesn't work is because the people who want to eat Chol Yisroel, those who are machmir to eat only Chol Yisroel, don't hold that idea works. They hold that you have to have a re'iyah also. They hold sort of as like Gevina. And this is not a re'iyah. That is to say, when there are dinim, when there are halachas that require seeing, Okay, when a person, there's a get going on, the Adam have to see the get going on. Adam can't see that seeing through a video camera. That's not considered. We at the time, if Reese would have been answering that question, we asked Rabbi Friedman, and he said, no. For those kind of dinner, we would not accept the person seeing it, even if they're not actually standing there and watching the proceedings. We wouldn't consider that to be a seeing. We would say, guy watching my video camera. He says we would know that it happened. We would know. So if we had to prove it in a financial dealings, that would be fine. He saw what happened. But for things that need a person to actually watch the proceedings, no, that doesn't work. For the aim to work. So Rav Weissman says, if I hold that I want Chol V'Shol because I need Re'iyah, I didn't gain anything by watching by video camera. Okay? And other Rachonim, the one that we spoke about at the time, Rabbi Yashiv said it, others said it, no, there's nothing, you could watch it by video. And we understood them to mean is, they agreed with Rav Moshe that Yediyah B'lo Re'iyah works for Chaliva. They agreed with that part that Yediyah works. They just held that government oversight is not providing the necessary Yediyah. But if you had another Yediyah, a person watching by video camera, has the idea, he knows what he's seeing. There's no question that he saw that it came from a cow and the milk is kosher. That's why they held that the chaliva, if you watch the chaliva through a video camera, that would be good enough.
It might even be re'iyah on some level. I know it's not good for edus. But nobody says that you need edus per se with respect to Gevinas. You say you need re'iyah, so it's a different...
Do you think it's a different criteria? So he
it's not good for edus. That's what I'm saying.
Right. We assumed, actually, before we did that, we spoke about the way Rabbi Friedman, we would finish Rabbi Friedman, and he said, no, most people would assume that that's not good enough for a re'iyah. So we understood then that it could be, you think the requirement for this is less than edus. See, it's less than a regulated requirement.
Right.
But we understood, look, the din is, if the din is you specifically have to see it, if you specifically have to see something, that's your wife's advice. A whole dispute, you have to see it. It's an edus type kind of a thing. You could argue on from that side. Okay, but
you know about Gerus, there's the Rosh's from Gerus. There you need an edus, and they allow it even though you're not actually seeing it.
So there, because you don't need, so there, it's right. Tyson said you need edus, and edus can be without anybody seeing either. So you can argue on from that angle and say that there are other ways to be mavar things for edus kind of things. Okay, you could say it. But
like an uninstalled.
yeah, that's what we'll take this from there.
What would you suggest as if you have a person standing here and a camera right next to him, and they're both aimed exactly the same spot, I think the eye would see a lot more than the camera sees.
Okay, you're right about that. When we spoke about the technical hurdles to make the video camera do the trick. That's true. That's a separate question. To how do you actually, if you held that at work, how do you actually set up? We spoke about that. How do you set up the cameras to do the trick? That is a very serious complication. But now we're talking about just the theory of it. Okay? Now, but over here it's more important the theory, which is that all's a question by that all could be worked by cholav. That was a question whether it should work by cholav. But by Gevina, where the din is you specifically have to see it. So if you say, like Rabbi said, if you're going to say that no, that's considered clean also because it's not such a high sin, okay, maybe then it would work. But the Pasha says that the re'iyah here is thing you specifically have to see it as if you're an aide watching the thing. Other birurim are not going to work, so you have 100% yediyah and you have a 0% re'iyah. The person watching by video camera, he's not seeing anything that would qualify as aid. So now, Rabbi is saying maybe maybe when it said you have to see, it didn't mean you have to see as an aid. It was calling for something else. Okay, so maybe we could squeeze by a Gevinas Yisroel through that way. But the Pasha says that whole discussion was because by cholav was because there's a possibility that Yediyah could work. Yediyah B'lo Re'iyah could work. But by Gevinas specifically, you cannot do that. Yediyah B'lo Re'iyah does not help. By Gevinas, you have to specifically see it, right? You have to specifically see it, in which case the video should not work. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying, I think you're saying, that there's some comparisons between the two, and there's some, for lack of a better word, ma'akiv for one as opposed to the other.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's ma'akiv, I think would have to be ma'akiv on the other, just because of, if you hold that you have to see with human eye, then that's going to
go back to cholav also.
Go back to cholav.
No. So that's a difference. Even though they have the same requirement, you have to see. Cholav has a way out. There are other things you can skip.
Would that way out be acceptable?
No, not for Gevina. Only for cholav, not for you.
No. Would that person dealing with the Gevina or wanting to eat the Gevina, would he hold that the milk part is acceptable even though he doesn't hold to it?
Yes. Okay, now, at the time, we spoke about this for Cholov. People here asked the question. I'm still not sure I know the answer to that question, but I'll say it again because it's going to get to here, which was, I'm suggesting to you that the video camera doesn't work for Gevina. It's not going to work for Gevina. But I just told you 2 minutes ago that Yotzeh V'nichnas does work. Okay, well, what does it mean to be a Yotzeh V'nichnas? What is the definition of it? What does Yotzeh V'nichnas mean? Yotzeh V'nichnas means is that the Yid is close enough by, or the people think he's close enough by, that he can come in before they can switch around the tray for the kosher. So let's say that they're making kosher food across the street, and it would take them 10 minutes to hide the trade food, and it only takes me 5 minutes to get across the street. So then that's good. I'm going to Yotzeh V'nichnas, because if I walk in there, then I can catch them before they have a chance to hide what I'm doing. But let's say they're 20 minutes away, and it takes them only 10 minutes to hide it, and they know that I'm here, then I'm not a Yotzeh V'nichnas, because I'm standing here. It takes me 20 minutes to get there. By the time I get there, they could have hidden what the traits that they had. So that's not a good Yotzeh V'nichnas. So Yotzeh V'nichnas depends on how close you are, or how close they think you might be, versus how much time it takes them to cheat. Okay, so those are, you balance those things to figure out if you're a Yotzeh V'nichnas or not. Okay, well, so let's say looking on a camera doesn't work. Looking on the camera is not a re'iyah. But looking on the camera should create a Yotzeh V'nichnas. Let's say I'm 2 hours away. Okay? Let's say I'm 20 hours away. It doesn't make a difference how far away I am. If I have the camera, if I'm watching the person, so my watching doesn't create a re'iyah. We're saying, no, it doesn't. I'm saying, no, it doesn't work. Watching him does not make re'iyah. Okay, it doesn't make re'iyah. But doesn't it make a Yotzeh V'nichnas? Because now he can't cheat. I can be 20 hours away, but he knows that he can't cheat because I might see him from a distance and then catch him. Yeah. So I'm Yotzeh V'nichnas even from 2 hours or 20 hours away, because why is that Yotzeh V'nichnas? What do you think?
Well, it doesn't work because I set up a camera company, so the manager knew about the camera and the workers did not.
Okay, so you're answering a technical question. You're saying is that a camera, there's a lot of parts into making the camera work. If only he knows about it and he doesn't know about it, right, then he's going to cheat because he doesn't know the camera. Right, so that's a technicality. But let's say we got past that. We figured out a way that it works, that it's obvious to everybody, and they're afraid of being caught. That's not, that we've created that. So we're saying, no, being afraid to be caught is not good enough to make Gevina, because I have to see it. But I just told you Yotzeh V'nichnas work. Well, Yotzeh V'nichnas, so why don't I say I'm Yotzeh V'nichnas from? Well, maybe I could oversee it in Spain also. Because if I'm watching it by camera, I could get there fast enough. And I know if he cheated, so the camera should help make basically any place Yotzeh V'nichnas. I can Yotzeh V'nichnas to any place because I can catch him from any place because I can get there fast enough to know if he cheated. Because the second he cheats, I know about it. So I caught him even from a distance. Good for Cholov. It's very Cholov, which is good for Gevina then also. The question then was for Cholov.
Gevina Yotzeh V'nichnas doesn't work.
No, but Yotzeh V'nichnas does work. You missed that. Yotzeh V'nichnas, it does. So if Yotzeh V'nichnas works, so then I have the re'iyah. Okay, so the video camera doesn't count as the re'iyah per se. But if the video camera counts, turn me into Yotzeh V'nichnas.
Wait, is Yotzeh V'nichnas a re'iyah issue or is it a mirrors issue?
No, re'iyah. That's what we said. Yotzeh V'nichnas is as if you saw it. So okay, we know this is wrong. So this is the question came up and said, because it sounds hard to believe that I can be Yotzeh V'nichnas from 20 hours away because I can get how far.
Yotzeh V'nichnas is alright. You don't really need re'iyah much. You really need a certain high level mirror, and the video camera takes the same.
You missed. That's what we said. It's not like that. So said that is considered re'iyah.
This is not considered real?
Yeah.
So he means that's a good enough mirror. That's the very not very.
You listen to the tape. Okay. So okay. So it's a question. This question was asked last time.
Well, that's work. Because only mirrors would have that special din re'iyah, therefore. But like in general, Yotzeh V'nichnas is just for mirrors, but here it's for re'iyah. So
I'm saying here the camera, the mirrors that you created by the camera.
Yotzeh V'nichnas by Cholov, so it's not a mirrors thing, it's a re'iyah thing.
Right, it's the right level of re'iyah.
I don't even know what it means. I'm looking at the floor. Re'iyah what? Okay.
Yes, I'll forgive you. But we have no email later. Okay, one last thing. Okay, in some super modern plants, okay, they don't. The guy doesn't come over to the milk tank and pour in the rennet by hand. He doesn't even push the button there, and all of a sudden the liquid pours in. And that the Yid could stand there and watch to make sure he's using kosher rennet. But what they do is, they sit in a control room. They sit in a room like this. The milk plant is wherever it is, and everything happens from there. If you walk into the plant, you see nothing. You sit in the plant, there's just lots and lots of tanks. There's no people, there's no equipment, there's no nothing. You just see a lot of tanks, and they're all making noises and doing their things, but there's nobody there. There's nobody who's controlling it, and there's nothing to see. If you stand there, you don't see anybody pouring rennet into the milk tank. But if you go to the control room, you see a few guys sitting there with a bunch of computers in front of them, and they're pushing buttons and watching things and doing things, and everything's happening there.
See, when you go to a plant, there's nobody there. It's all tanks. All the tanks are connected to something somewhere, where something was put into the tank.
Yes.
As an ingredient.
At some point, it's people. It's not good.
No. No. It's that at some point something was put into something else.
Yes.
That's going to be used for. So when they get the tank car of rennet and it's connected by a hose to go into the tank, isn't that what you're calling?
That's a very good point. I'm going to get to very good point. I'm getting right to that.
Well,
very
All
good.
you see is the rat going to a tank.
Okay, very good. So the question is, well, I have three choices. Besides we get to what the cans, I had three choices of what we should tell the Yid to watch. The Rama said the Yid has to watch. Okay, so one choice is tell the Yid to stand in the middle of the plant, and he should watch. Okay, there's all these tanks. These tanks are turning into cheese. And so tell him, watch it. That's what the Rama says. You have to watch. So stand there and watch as tank number 1 turns into cheese, and then tank number 2 turns into cheese. Okay, that's one choice. Okay? The other choice is tell him to go to the control room, and he should stand there and watch the guys play on the computers and make the things do what they're supposed to do. Okay? And the third choice is maybe it's not possible. Maybe in this case you just can't see it. Maybe you can't make things. It's all over here because there's nothing to see. He should watch computers or should he watch tanks? Neither of them maybe is a good choice. And he should just watch nothing. Go home. He can't make things. No.
He can push
No, that's the shop. He can participate. Participate doesn't help. You have to watch. So maybe it's not possible. Maybe
You don't watch this, no good.
if you participate
If you
in the Rama,
we don't watch it.
well, according to the Rama, how's that do?
What do you get? You actually doing the cheese.
And you don't watch?
Yeah.
So watch the video. What if I give you something in your hand and I say pour it in, and you don't know what you're pouring in? What does it
I'm
help?
not putting it right. I don't see it doing it.
How do you know?
Because I know when the bag. I know it's kosher.
If you didn't see anything, if you saw nothing, so I handed you a box and I said, throw it in. Is that gonna help?
No, I know what I have.
So then you saw it. So you saw it.
No, I didn't see them pouring in.
So you participated. So
I know it's right.
What do you think you're doing?
I know what I'm doing. I'm not seeing it. That's not happening. Right? I know this case. I know.
Okay,
So
I'm not sure what you're.
Somebody else in a remote location is watching the whole thing on video. Okay?
So you're saying it's not so different than what we're talking about. That's the question. I know what's happening, but I don't see anything.
No,
The Rama says I have to see it.
Do it. Say that's not going to be nothing.
Why is it? What's the
Okay,
difference?
I'm doing the whole thing.
So what if you do
It's my cheese. I'm doing it.
But that's not what makes it kosher. The Rama says what makes it kosher is for you watching it. What difference do I know?
That's what he's doing. So the Rama, if you look at it, then stuff. If I'm doing myself, it's my cheese.
What do you have to be watching exactly?
What's it?
What are you watching?
That's the question.
It's a more basic shaila with the Rama by the kulas of the shach or not. You know, the shach on some level is more of a makeup, but on another level, the shach's more of a makeup.
We're gonna
But on another level, he might be more of a makeup.
We're gonna-
The shach says, number one, you just have to own it.
Right.
Number two, even if you participate, he didn't say you need a read.
Right, correct. So the Pasha says that the Rama does not hold to those things. There's no reason to think it holds like that. Whether the Shach holds or the Rama says, we'll talk also next time. Next time. I keep saying next time.
Yeah.
But next time we'll talk about those parts. Okay, so in a different context, okay, Rodowski says, listen here, the Mashgiach's job, he's not an honor guard. Okay, he's not supposed to. What's the point of the guy standing there watching the milk curdle? He's not supposed to just stand there like at Buckingham Palace with a fancy uniform on and watch the cheese curdling. He says, what's the point of a guy standing there? In our case, a guy standing there in the plant looking at empty tanks. The point is, we're supposed to be getting the birur that his watching is supposed to create the birur that they use in kosher rennet. Okay, so what's the point for the guy to stand there in a plant and watch empty tanks? I mean, they're not full. They're empty. They're full tanks, but he sees nothing. There's nothing for him to see over there. The Pasha says that his job is to do whatever visual inspection will make sure that he's getting kosher cheese, that the kosher rennet is being used. And therefore, the right place for the Mashiach to be is in the control room. Okay? He's supposed to be standing there, do it through Re'iyah, making sure that they're doing the right things.
Well, even so.
And for this, well, I thought of what Ken said, it was 100%, which is, if the person stands in the control room and he watches that they're pushing the button that says, take the kosher rennet from this tank and put it into this tank. Okay, so that's the Re'iyah he's supposed to do. But if the person never goes back into the bowels of a plant to make sure that tank that's called the kosher rennet tank has kosher rennet, then he missed the boat. Okay, for sure, he's got to do is go there and say the computer doesn't know anything. The computer doesn't check for hashgachos. The computer just says whatever's in tank. A goes into tank B. So it doesn't know what's in tank A. They call it the kosher rennet tank. But the mashgiach's job is not. The mashgiach's job is to make sure that tank A is kosher rennet. It's not a matter just of hashgacha, a regular hashgacha. They might switch ingredients. That's the whole point of Gevinas Yisroel. Gevinas Yisroel is the Yid, according to Rema, the Yid has to watch and make sure they're using kosher rennet. So if he doesn't go look at that tank, it's not that, oh, maybe they switched it. He missed the Gevinas Yisroel. He didn't get, Gevinas Yisroel means make sure they're using kosher rennet. If he just believes it, they just takes whatever it is, then he didn't make kosher rennet. Okay, so you have to make rennet. So you have to watch, you need to check that tank to make sure it really holds kosher rennet. See when they fill that it's really kosher. But look, at the end, during the cheese making, his place, L'chara, is in the control room, watching what's going on, understanding what it's looking at, and watching to make sure that they're taking the right rennet and putting it into the right place. Okay, so now, wait, I'm almost finished.
You can make an argument if the only tank that leads into the cheese maker rennet is this. There's only one tank that leads from here to here.
Yeah.
And you stand in where the cheese is being made, and you see it gets sucked out of there. You put it in a second ago, and a minute later it comes like it's gone.
That's fine.
That's enough. You don't have to go to the control.
That's one also. You're right. There's just one tank. I mean, I watch it being sucked out, and I know it's going to this tank. That's true. Okay, so you're watching what you need to watch. Those pipes.
You don't see it. You see tank.
If I watch the tank that has the rennet in it, and I see it has
Right. Nothing else leading into this. This is the rennet tank. No, put the kosher rennet. Sure. And then
okay. So now to put our questions together. So now what happens? What happens if the control room is here? Okay, and the milk tank is in Spain. Okay, then we can control by computer control from any place. So I said to you, well, so Yotzeh V'nichnas. So should the guy watch it here also? Can he sit here? Can we sit here in Chicago and watch the cheese being made off in France? Can Rabbi Moskowitz log into the guy's computer and look at his computer remote? So he's here. The control room is in Rancho Cucamonga, and the cheese is being made in Wisconsin, and Rabbi Moskowitz is sitting at home playing with the grandchildren. Okay, watching them making the cheese over here in the control room. Someplace. Does that work also? So, like a funny question. If that's all he has to do is watch the control room, okay. So he went in, he checked the vendor, he sealed it up. They can't change it anymore. So now could he do that? I don't know what the answer is.